They didn't whisper. They didn't pull him aside quietly. Two security guards walked right up to him, in front of everyone, and told him he had to leave. At his own son's graduation. What they didn't know was who he was. And they had no idea what would happen when 6 Navy SEALs stood up, walked across the gym, and silenced the entire room. This is a story about pride. Pride in your family, pride in the years you've worked for something, pride in the uniform you've worn. And it's a story about what happens when people try to take that pride from you in public, without reason, without even bothering to ask the simplest question. On this day, a retired black Marine faced a moment of public humiliation, but what happened next turned it into a moment nobody in that gym will ever forget. It was one of those June mornings where the sun already felt heavy at 9 o'clock. The sky was bright, the kind of day you take pictures in because the colors pop. The parking lot outside the high school was packed, every spot taken by proud parents and grandparents. People carried bouquets, cameras, homemade signs. Inside, the gym had been transformed. Folding chairs in neat rows faced a long stage with a podium at its center. Behind it, a banner read, "Class of 2023, congratulations graduates." Among the crowd walking in was a tall man in a black suit. His shoes were polished, his tie crisp. He moved with the quiet confidence of someone who'd been in high-pressure situations before. His name was Gunnery Sergeant David Johnson, retired United States Marine Corps. He wasn't here as a Marine today. He was here as a father. His son Muckus Johnson was graduating. David had been looking forward to this day for years. He'd missed birthdays and school plays during his time in service. He stood watch in deserts and jungles while Muckus grew up back home, but he had promised himself he would be here for this. He stepped into the gym, scanning for a seat, clutching a small gift bag for Muckus. That's when he noticed them. 2 security guards. One tall, broad-shouldered, white, the other shorter, stockier, also white. Their eyes locked on him the second he stepped in. They didn't look at the other parents. They didn't smile, nod, or welcome him. They just watched. David ignored it at first. Years in the Corps had taught him to push aside small distractions. He found a seat halfway up the bleachers. He sat down, set the gift bag at his feet, and took out his phone to snap a quick picture of the stage. The guards started walking toward him. "Sir, can we help you?" The voice came from David's left, deep, clipped, and carrying that weightless kind of politeness that isn't polite at all. The tall man who spoke was already squared toward him, one foot slightly ahead of the other, hands clasped loosely in front. His eyes didn't wander, didn't soften, didn't smile. It wasn't curiosity, it was prejudgment. David looked up, caught off guard. "No, I'm good," he said evenly. "Just here to see my son graduate." Beside the tall one, another guard, shorter, stockier, with a close buzz cut, tilted his head. "Do you have an invite?" His tone was sharper, faster. David raised an eyebrow. "An invite?" "This is a closed event," the tall guard said, shifting his weight forward slightly. "Family members only." David gave a small nod. "Yeah, I know. That's why I'm here. I'm Muckus Johnson's father." He gestured toward the sea of black gowns and mortarboards, spotting Muckus easily in the front row, tall like his father, sitting straight, his tassel brushing his cheek as he turned to laugh at something a classmate said. Neither guard even glanced that way. "We'll need to verify that," the shorter guard said flatly. "In the meantime, sir, I'm going to ask you to step outside." The words hit heavier than they should have. Step outside. They weren't about a seat or a list, they were about control. David's eyes narrowed slightly. "Step outside, why?" "We've had issues before," the tall guard replied. "People coming in without clearance causing problems. It's school policy to check." "I don't have a ticket," David admitted, "but Muckus told me my name was on the list. His dad. I didn't think I needed a paper invite." "You do," the shorter one said instantly, not missing a beat. His eyes didn't leave David's face. David could feel the air in the gym shift. People nearby had stopped mid-sentence. A woman behind him leaned forward a little. Somewhere to his right, a child whispered to their mother. It wasn't the first time he'd felt it. That invisible spotlight, the one that turns you into the scene. Memory 1994, Jacksonville, North Carolina. David, just 19 and fresh from boot camp, had gone to a diner with 3 other Marines. The waitress smiled and poured coffee for the white Marines first. When she got to him, she didn't smile. "Can I see some ID?" she asked. He'd been in uniform, that hadn't mattered. Back in the gym, David adjusted his posture, his broad shoulders settling against the metal bleacher seat. His voice stayed low, but his words carried weight. "Let me save you some time. I'm Mucka's Johnson's father. I came here to watch him graduate. I'm not here to cause trouble, and I'm not leaving." The tall guard's eyes flicked down and back up, scanning him. "Sir, we can either do this the easy way or—" "The easy way," David interrupted, his tone firm but calm. "You think coming up to me in front of a crowd and questioning whether I belong here is the easy way?" The shorter guard took half a step closer, enough for David to smell the faint trace of cologne and the metallic tang of a radio clipped to his belt. "We can take this conversation outside, or we can call backup." The word backup hung between them. Memory, Fallujah, 2004. The voice on the radio said backup's 5 minutes out. 5 minutes could be an eternity in combat. Backup never meant help to David. It meant this is about to escalate. David's jaw flexed once. "You want to call someone? Call Mucka's. He'll tell you exactly who I am. But I'm not going anywhere until I see my son walk that stage." The shorter guard's eyes flicked to the taller one, a quick, silent exchange. David caught it. Years in the Marines had trained him to read body language like a book. Around them, the low hum of graduation chatter had faded to something quieter, sharper. The stage was still lit, students still seated, but all over the bleachers people were sneaking glances. The taller guard lowered his voice just slightly. "Look, sir, we're not trying to cause a scene." David almost laughed. "You already did, you just don't realize it yet." The shorter guard shifted his stance again, one hand brushing the radio at his hip. The move wasn't lost on David. His eyes narrowed just a fraction, his voice staying controlled. "You're making a mistake," he said quietly. "A big one." No one answered right away. The silence stretched. Even the squeak of shoes on the gym floor seemed to pause. A woman 2 rows down turned to the person next to her and whispered something. Another man in a baseball cap leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, eyes locked on David. It wasn't just the guards' attention anymore. It was the whole corner of the gym. David could feel the weight of it pressing in. The unspoken question, what's he doing here? The quiet assumption, he doesn't belong. He thought of Mucka's, how proud he'd been this morning, standing in front of the mirror adjusting his gown, joking about how he'd trip walking across the stage. He thought about the promise he'd made to himself during deployments. "If I make it home, I'll be there for everything. Every game, every birthday, every milestone." And now here he was, being told to step outside. David leaned forward slightly, his hands resting on his knees. His voice was steady, almost conversational, but there was steel in it. "I've been shot at. I've been in firefights that lasted hours. I've been halfway across the world, thinking I might never see my boy again. And you're telling me I need to leave his graduation because you don't think I belong here." Neither guard spoke. The shorter one's jaw tightened. The taller one's gaze didn't break, but David could see the faint twitch at the corner of his eye. The air between them felt like a stretched rope pulled tight, waiting to snap. And then in the distance, the faintest scrape of metal on metal, someone standing, chairs shifting, not just one, several. But David didn't turn his head. Not yet. He kept his eyes locked on the two men in front of him. He wasn't giving them the satisfaction of breaking eye contact first. It wasn't the first time. Not by a long shot. David could remember being 14 years old, walking into a corner store in his own neighborhood and hearing the owner mutter, "Watch him." He could remember being in uniform, walking through an airport, and having a stranger ask if he was really in the Marines. He could remember being pulled over, asked who the car belonged to when his name was right there on the registration. You learn to live with it. You learn to stay calm. You learn that getting angry can cost you more than it costs them. But this was supposed to be a day about muckas. "I'm not going anywhere," David said, keeping his voice even. "I'm here for my son, and you're not taking that from me." The tall guard's hand moved toward the radio clip to his shoulder. The shorter one shifted forward, planting his feet like he was ready to block David if he stood up. And then something happened that neither guard expected. From the far side of the gym, 6 men stood up. They weren't in uniform, but they didn't need to be. The way they moved straight-backed, eyes sharp, told you they were military. They began walking toward the bleachers, not fast, not aggressive, but with a calm, steady purpose. "Conva,"